Hi, this is T with Teaquilts, and I think I have 3 people live. Can you go ahead and let me know if the audio system is working for you? So I have one person showing up as live. Okay, so they're starting to pop in now. But this is T with Teaquilts, and today we are doing scrap storage, and I'm just doing an intro to the video for the people that watch this when it's recorded. And I'm just going to wait a little bit for some more subscribers or viewers to come on board. And I have a few people already have done their check-in. We have Lauren from Texas, from Dallas, Texas. And we have Myla from Tennessee, and Debbie from St. Louis, and Patricia. And Debbie is saying that it's echoing. So let me try to cut the volume down. Does, is, is that better? That might be better. So maybe the volume was too high. Let me know, Debbie. Got Robin. And she's from Florida. So I've had a few people saying that they use the plastic clear containers to store their scraps, and also shoe boxes and fabric bins. So we're getting some people coming through. I like to try to get 25, and we're at that point. Okay, Debbie, let me know. Oh, let me know if it's still echoing really bad. I've cut the volume down again. I don't want to cut it down so far and then you don't hear me. How about that? Is that echoing now? I'm going to wait a few minutes till I hear back from Debbie to know if I'm actually echoing now. So we got Bonita. Hi, Bonita. Got Gloria from Ontario. We have Barbara from Canada. And Bonita is from Charlotte, North Carolina. Viva, she's here. Hi, Viva. So Debbie, can you still let me know if I'm echoing or not? Hi, Rosalind. You should be able to, I found there was a down button on my iPad that I needed to click, and then the chat box popped up. So look around your system and see if there's something, even though it doesn't say chat or anything, if it's a down arrow anywhere, click it because it pops right up. Hi, Diane. Thank you for viewing. Got Sola from New York. She hears me. So this system is apparently working better. I just need to figure out about the echo that Debbie is saying is happening. So should I go forward or should I just take the headphone system off, I guess? Because this is all that I have to work with. I tried my other system. The receiver was bad. I have another receiver, but apparently it's double echoing. So should I continue with this or should I take the headpiece off? We got Teresa from Los Angeles. Welcome, everybody. And I got Elaine. She says it sounds good. She's from Kansas City, Missouri. So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and get started so that I'm not wasting all of the time on my part, and you all can chime in and I can get your systems together too. Okay, great. I'm getting no echoes at this point, and it could go up and down based on my voice volume, I'm sure. So Mostly we're here to talk about scrap storage, but again, I'm one of those open chat forums where if you want to ask me a question about something else or you're stuck on some project, I'm okay with you popping that in there. I'll get to it when I can, and let's get started. So for me, working with a scrap storage system, before I even get to that point, a whole lot of other things have happened for me. The main thing is that I've been making previous quilts because that's mostly how most of us obtain our scraps. Sometimes we get them donated from other people, but 90% of us, I'd say, get our scraps from making previous quilts. And so, one of the satisfactions I want to talk about that first, using your scraps. For me, number one is that when I make a scrap quilt and I've made it from quilts, especially those quilts that I have given to family members or donated to charity. I have some of those fabrics in my actual scrap quilt that I'm probably keeping for myself. So I have a history of what I've kind of used over the long haul. And then my number two satisfaction from it is most scraps don't get used if you don't have some sort of system for using them. So just making what I consider to be a free quilt because you bought this fabric. Most of us have bought fabric for a previous project or we were using it on another project, even if it's from our stash. And so now we've got what we're considering to be the free quilt because after we've done that quilt, say we've used it for a border, then we've got this fabric left over. So first I want to just talk about some things in part of the scrap storage process as a whole. So first thing is if your scraps look like this, where they're all balled up, it's not a good thing. And most likely you're not going to use them in that state. So I learned a long time ago, I had my scraps like that, and they were just very difficult for me to use. And so what I do is as I'm finishing up a project, and I have made sure that I've cut my binding if I want to use any of those projects, any of those fabrics in that project, I'll go ahead and make sure I have my binding. And anything else, I either, if it's larger than a half yard, I will go ahead and roll them onto my system and put them back into my stash. And I'm going to give you all kind of video links that's going to be up at the eye when this video go live because I show you exactly how I roll this. But what I do is I roll anything that's less more than a half yard, then I will roll it. Otherwise, to me, it's considered a scrap. So to prevent my scraps again from looking like this, if I have, say, a quarter yard left, I have some options. I can fold this and then I make nice little prettier stacks. They're not just all balled up. And this is what I put into my scrap containers. What I mostly use is closet made wire rack systems because they have clips that I can clip into them and then the drawers don't drop or sag. I've tried using some of the plastic units and then the drawers will fall on top of each other. You know, those very colorful ones. They have about 5 colors and you get 2 drawers, 2 or 3 drawers in each color. I don't like those because when you start to put weight in them, they start to crash down on each other. So I like a good sturdy storage system for that. Because they're a wire rack and I don't want all of those imprints in my fabric, I will line it with either cardboard and then I'll iron a piece of freezer paper onto the cardboard and I'll make that the size of the actual drawer bottom. So that's how I actually store my folded scraps. Now, the other option is when I'm actually finished with that project, I can opt to cut it into various size strip sets or squares or half square triangles or pieces that I need for a future project. If I know I'm going to make, say, a disappearing 9 patch quilt and I want to start with 4.5 inch squares, then any scraps that I have while I'm working on other projects. Say if I'm doing that for like 2 months, then I'll be cutting anything that I can cut into those 4.5 inch squares. That way I'm already making the pieces for the next project that I haven't even started yet. So it doesn't have to be just what's basic in your storage system already. It can be for a future project. So after that, anything that's less than a quarter yard, I do go ahead and decide if I want to cut it up into something. So once I cut it up into something, you've got to have systems for storage. And I've already had a couple of the ladies saying that they use storage containers. And I do use the storage containers. This was my very first storage container, and it was for my 1.5 inch squares. And it was actually a kitchen container. I just went straight into my kitchen, pulled this out so that I could use it. And then to keep my family from taking it back from me, should it ever be empty. And yeah, that was really funny. And I just drew this little flower on it so that they knew that it was not something that goes back into the kitchen. So this is how I actually started, and I still use it to this day. Most of my containers, once I put something in there, they mostly stay there until they're gone. So your squares and strings are part of your stash forever because you're constantly in and out of it using the product. Some other storage containers, and you can get the shoebox kind. I actually use those as well. But I just wanted to show you this one that I found at Harbor Freight years ago, so they probably don't have it, but it actually is one of my favorites. And it actually has where you can put these little dividers in. And I liked it because then if I wanted to, I can put my light, mediums, and darks. But right now I just have my mediums and darks mixed here because I'm mostly trying to separate what I want as my lights on the other side. And I'm constantly working with this right now. I got a few projects. But the next thing too is once you get all of your containers, you don't want to constantly be trying to figure out what's inside of the said containers. So you want to make sure that you label them with something that you can see from across the room. So when you say, I need a couple of squares this size, you know exactly where they are and you're not trying to figure out where are they. So my iPad went to sleep. So let me wake it back up. Okay. So yeah. So that's a big part of the process. So the main thing, the reason why I cut my pieces right after a project is the main reason is because it's already pressed and it's not all wrinkly like this. So if I needed to come back and cut 2 inch squares out of scraps, I first got to take first. My first stop is going to be going to the ironing station. If I cut it right after I'm finished using it, most likely it's already been pressed, it's ready to go. So this eliminates that second step of pressing again. Let me make sure I got some notes here because I don't want to forget anything to tell you. Okay, and number two is starching. I like to starch my fabrics when I'm using them. So even when I store my fabrics and they've been in there for a year or two, because I'm constantly replenishing and using my scrap, I don't, when I go to press, you've been seeing me on a whole lot of previous videos where I've been using my wooden iron and things are laying very flat for the most part. And so I don't have to always go run to the traditional heated iron. I can use between steps, I can use my wooden iron to press. So that's another reason that I like to use spray starch. And I'll link a video to the different types of starches that I use as well. Part of cutting is in having the tools available for that cutting. So you want to make sure that you're using appropriately sized tools. If you're cutting 3 inch squares, you don't want to be using a 8.5 by 24-inch ruler to cut 3 inch squares. Make sure you get some smaller tools that are appropriate to the size scraps you cut on a regular basis. But then also having rotating mats will help with that as well, especially when you're squaring up half square triangles. I definitely wouldn't want to be trying to square up a 2.5 inch half square triangle with a 12.5 inch square up ruler. that's just too bulky. And the more you're moving this bulkiness around, it's also taking up your time. One of my favorite things before I really got into the die cutting system is the June Teller shape cut ruler. It has slots, and I did not bring all of these tools in here. I do normally do this for you all, but I have such a mess when I get through from pulling all of this stuff, and then it takes me a day or two to get it all put back up. So you'll have to Google some of these items if you're new and don't know what they are. But it's the June Teller Shape Cut Plus ruler, and I like to use those when I'm cutting scraps. You can cut a lot of pieces very fast with that. And then again, I've talked about this in previous videos where I like using a 60 millimeter cutter versus the 45 millimeter, just because I feel like it can cut more layers and it's a bigger blade and it doesn't have to rotate as much. And of course, I do use my die cutting system to quickly cut, and I have a video on that. I will also link it when it go live. So now the reason, another thing is, so you've cut all of these things, and then say you see in a magazine and they have a 2 fabric quilt and it's telling you that you need 300 3-inch squares in print, in a one print. And you go, well, I've got 300 2.5-inch squares. I don't have 300 3-inch squares. You have a right as a designer to change the whole mathematical formula of that pattern and use whatever it is that you already have pre-cut. So if I don't have a particular size of something, then I will go ahead and I'm just trying to look at comments to make sure nothing major has happened because I see a lot of comments. But you have the artistic right to change the size, and I do that all the time. If I don't have something but I have a lot of this, then I'll use what I have and then I'll make all the other pieces fit to whatever it is that I need. And when I cut my square, sometimes if I come across projects, like say for my 2.5-inch squares, what I had in this container that I took out, I wasn't ready to show you yet, is sometimes I might get a pattern that I see online or in a magazine. I'll take a photo of it. And then if it's quilt, then I'll go ahead and take this. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do this. It just means that I have some idea of what I can do with the squares if I choose to. And then another option that you could do is you can also make a test block. So this is the same pattern. I went ahead and made a test block. It doesn't mean that I'm going to make the quilt. It just means that I have a test block. Some of my other containers that I like, and I got one up here. Excuse me while I just get one for you. Sorry about that. I should have gotten it down earlier. Because I like these tiered containers, and I like when I'm working on a project that does have light, medium, and dark values, then I'll use one of these containers for each of the values, no matter if they're half square triangles, solid squares, or whatever. I will use this container to sort my different values if that's what the quilt is calling for. Just trying to make sure I got everything. Okay, then the other thing is sometimes we do these test blocks, like the one that I just showed you, or we're working on a project and we have extra blocks left over. That's part of your scrap storage system as well. And I'll collect those, and I have like a big popcorn tin, those big cans, and I put all of my extra half square triangles, extra blocks, my test pieces. I put everything in there because eventually I can make a scrap quilt and don't have to do any of the actual block sewing. And I showed that through a series of videos where I did Pat Sloan's solstice quilt. And I'll link that too. I think I called it the heartbeat sampler because I had a lot of half square triangles that I ended up making a heart with like little waves going along the side. So I'll link all of these when the video actually go live. So part is more than just how you store. It's your whole process of when you actually get a hold of that scrap, because scraps can become overwhelming for a lot of people. And my main tip for scrap storage is to decide what is the smallest amount of scrap that you will use. So if your smallest scrap that you're going to use is 2.5 inch squares, then don't keep 1.5 inch squares or 1.5 inch strips, because all it's going to do is just frustrate you and stress you out. Maybe you've got some friends or people in a quilting guild that you can go donate these scraps to. Give them to somebody else that enjoy working with that size. For me, my smallest scrap is 1.5 inch, because I like to do a lot of miniatures. And then I also cut 1.5 inch strips. And then I also keep strings, and I just keep strings. I got a video on how I did that too, so I'll link it. And I have one of those, it's like a closet organizer that came from Joy, and I didn't use it in the closet. I actually used it. It was a double sized little organizer. So I kind of sort from one side to the other as I'm going through my strings, picking out the different values that I want or the different colors that I'm wanting for a particular string quilt. So I have various different ways that I save, and I'm methodical about what I save. My friends actually think that I save everything, and I don't. I do throw some things away that I don't even try to give, because like I said, I don't keep anything for the most part less than 1.5 inches. So now I'm going to go ahead and go through the comment section and start catching up there. So you can give me your advice and opinions on what you do, and I'll start sharing those as well. Okay, I just got quite a few people saying that the echo isn't a problem. So we got Gloria here, Elaine is here, Aaron is here, got Rhonda. Okay, so Debbie said that it did work better when she restarted. And it was very high at first in the volume. So I've been kind of turning it down. So I think that helped. Hi, Cordelia. Wanda, she's from Richmond. Cordelia said she's from the Florida Panhandle. Debbie's looking for somebody to come iron for her. I think she's asking for me, but I don't like it. That's why I do it when it's already done, when it's already pressed from a project. Hi, Katie. Got Darlene, she's here. Darlene was asking if she was in a wait mode. No, you're here. I'm just doing the first spiel, and then I go through the comment section. Hi, Kaylin from Stitch Art Studio. Got Robin for RS Island Crafts. So if you got time, also go visit the other panels as well. Darlene is saying that she still has a wait for me. I'm hoping by the time I get to the bottom that she can get in. Hi, Eric. We have Eric here. Darlene's in. She said she had to restart her timer. Now, Debbie has a very good comment. She says, let me read it correctly. Don't you think die cutting wastes too much fabric? And yes and no. Realistically, it does waste some fabric. And I've had this asked on one of my comment sections as well. But when I was doing the Bonnie Hunter quote, and it was some serious stuff with the quote where we were needing 200 flying geese units at one time. And think about the amount of time that it's going to take for you to cut the appropriate pieces for 200 flying geese units. I had my flying geese units cut in about 20 minutes or less because I used a die cutting system. I got so much fabric, and I will be one of the people trying to die winning with the most fabric, because it's here we're just we're just we're nature abhors a vacuum. That phrase. And so I figure if it's going to save me time, I got so much fabric that I don't want to cut because it's just too pretty to cut, or I don't want to put this in this quilt because I'm going to give it away. I'm kind of getting over that now because I got so much fabric that I couldn't possibly use every piece of fabric I have in my house. So 99% of my quilts are scrap quilts. What that means for me is that I never run out of a piece of fabric. So I'm never going to be short or needing another piece of fabric because I can always add another fabric. So yes, it does in the end waste more fabric because every time you line up, you can't get right up to the edge of a blade like you can when you're using your rotary cutting system. But when I start talking about time, convenience, and accuracy, and I don't have to pay as much attention as when I'm using my rotary cutting system, then I'm okay with wasting some fabric. But that's a very good question because there are some people that can't afford to waste any fabric. They don't have stash that some of us quilters have. So I do understand that. There's two sides to every story. You saw my belly. Oh my God. Sorry. Yes. And Bonita is saying, yes, the stackable containers are nice. And Teresa said, good idea. Never thought to separate by value in particular quilt. So is the popcorn can, she said, so is the popcorn can a good idea? She's got to get one. Mary says, hello from Philadelphia. We got Gwen from Vegas. And Debbie says that's why her scraps are a mess because they need ironing. And I used to be in that same boat where this is what, some of this stuff was in my storage units, and it was like I did not want to go in there and be bothered with that stuff. So it makes a big difference. Like I'm working on the block for for Sunday that I'm going to upload. So I just decided to go pull various purples. And so I just took out all of my purple scraps, brought them up here so that I can cut. And I'm just showing you a handful that I didn't even use. But it's nice to be able to have scraps where I can just flip through them and not have this wad of mess, not knowing if I have enough to cut a 5-inch square or not. I know when I pick this up, okay, I can get a 5-inch square out of that. I can get a 5-inch square out of that. Other stuff didn't work for me. And I find something is frustrating me or causing me more like a creative process depression, then I don't want it in my space. I don't mind having stuff cluttered. I don't mind seeing it. I just want to know where it is. And I want to know when I'm first touching it or looking at it that it will work or not. I don't want to go through all the other changes. Hi, Samuel. Well, Gloria from Fresno. Got Catherine here. I think I got her earlier. No, that was Lauren. Hi, Catherine. Hi, Charmaine from Belleville, Illinois. You're close to me. We need to meet. And we got Rosalind from Durham, North Carolina. And Darlene says that she hates to waste fabric, and I understand that. Got Liz from New Orleans. Got Cindy from Wisconsin. She says she was joining late. She just came on she posted at 7:26. So welcome, but you can go back and watch the live viewing. Eric says that he used plastic containers from the dollar store to keep all of his scraps, and he sorts them by color. So I'm assuming, Eric, that you don't have a lot of larger scrap pieces, or do you put like pieces that are a quarter yard or more back into your regular fabric stash area? How do you all store if you're using smaller containers only? Paula, hi Paula from Wichita, Kansas. Got Norma from Ontario. She's getting ready to bust her stash. Got Marilyn from Palmdale, California. Cindy is telling Robin happy birthday. Happy birthday, Robin. And Debbie says, am I going to speak on leaders and enders? And that's one of those things that's kind of funny to me because I always called it chain piecing. Have been doing it when I was in making clothing. So she's talking about, I'm going to tilt the camera down, so don't be shocked. Whenever I sew, I always have something that's under my needle. The only time that something isn't under my needle is when I am changing my bobbin or my top thread is has run out. So otherwise, I keep something under my needle at all times. That's one of the reasons why I like to have a machine set up for piecing and then another machine that's set up for machine embroidery. And when I was doing machine quilting on my machines, I had another machine that was always set up for machine quilting. That way, if I wanted to switch projects out, then I didn't have to reset up the machine, worry about where all the feet are, and that kind of thing. Um, Leaders and enders is not necessarily something for scrap. To me, I use it more for the efficiency of working on more than one project at a time. So, like when I was saying where I would pre-cut for other projects, I can sometimes what I call chain piece other projects in between. Say if I have 20 half square triangles, and then when I'm finished with those, instead of breaking my thread, I'll sew a seam on another project. When I keep doing that over time, all those pieces build up. When I actually get to working on that project, all of my units, like if I'm making 4 patches, all my 2 patches might already be sewn, and all I got to do now is just sew the center seam. So it's a very efficient, effective method of working. And when she mentioned the leaders and enders, that is what Bonnie Hunter calls them. But I just grew up calling it chain piecing, and that was the new name that caught on was the leaders and enders. So thank you, Debbie. Hey, I love my 2 nephews. Please contact me. Send me an email through my YouTube homepage has my email address there, so I don't have to call it out for you. But I would love to meet with you. I'm close to Belleville. I'm actually right across the 270 River. Hi, Mrs. J. She's here from Maryland. Also, go visit MSJA Coleman, Coleman. Go visit her channel. She also does knitting. Debbie Huey says, I'm from your neighborhood and we met. She's a mess. And Diane says she needs to sew all of her scraps together. I was working on my mosaic blocks. I call my crumb blocks mosaic blocks. And I need like 19 more. I made 35. And I think I made 30, and I need 19 more because I wanted 49, and I haven't gotten back to working on those. And just project update, I have not gotten back to completing the Nancy Zeman quilt either, so I'm still working with that. However, I did finish working on my apple core quilt. I got it done. That was my goal, was to get that piece. And I must be a glutton for punishment because now I want to finish off the curves and sew a border around the outside, which means I'll have to sew like a half of an apple core all the way around the quilt. So I really am a glutton for punishment. I've come to that conclusion. So we'll see. The jury's out on that. I'm going to look through my stash and see if I have any fabric that will work with that. Paulette says hi, and she's from Boston, Massachusetts. Hi, Paulette. And Debbie is asking me, so what do you do with them one sewn. I don't know what you're asking me about, Debbie. Be more specific because I get my comments a lot later and then I'm going through all the comments so I don't see them when they first pop up. Bonita says, my daughter and I sew. I use smaller pieces of fabric so she will put her scraps from garment sewing in my fabric bookcase. So I'm pleasantly surprised when looking through them. And that's awesome too. I love getting somebody else's scraps sometimes because the only time that I'm basically adding new fabric into my scrap quilts is from borders, but when I'm cutting bindings or backings for the most part, because I'm using the scraps first because I want to keep that system going where I'm actually using them and rotating them out. It's so funny. I can go into my scrap container and see a scrap that's about 20 years old. It's hilarious to me. And I'm like, I haven't gotten rid of all of this yet. It's just amazing. So we got Patricia. She's saying thank for information. I am from Fayetteville, and these tips will help. The pressing before is a good idea. I've been quilting for about 10 years, and I have a lot of scraps to sort through. Yes, and that's what started happening with me about 5 years in. It just got to be so overwhelming that I didn't want to do anything with them. And so one day I actually sat down and went through every drawer of my scraps. They were already sorted by color, but I started pulling them out by size, if they were foldable, if I could put them into a string container, that kind of thing. And I got a lot of that stuff out of there. And now, as I'm working on like new fabrics, they go in there and they're folded now. They're not just in there. And I don't just go in there and make a mess. I actually pull the stuff out and then I'll flip through and pull what I want and put what I don't need back in, just trying to keep it organized. That just works a whole lot better for me. We got Teresa says, what's the sewing table you had at the retreat that folds and has wheels called? I'm interested in buying that. That table is called Sew Easy, SEW table. And when you buy the table, they ask you for the make and model of your sewing machine because they will make a plastic insert that fits your machine when it's at the free motion state. Rosemary says, I do scraps, the Bonnie Hunter program, 2.5 inch, 2 inch, 1.5 inch. Anything smaller, I give to my friend that makes mini quilts. And she's from Missouri. Hi, Rosemary. Thank you for commenting. And Debbie said, whatever it was I was asking her for, I've already answered. So thank you. Gwen Spencer, is there a video for the apple core? Yes, there is a video for the apple core. I will see if I have room to add that one in. I think I can only add 5 video links to the eye. If not, then I'll put the link in the video description once it goes live, but I will make sure that it's linked for you. I actually worked on it where I showed you how, I think I showed how I cut, and then I know specifically I was mostly in trying to show how I actually sold them. And then I have another video, a second video where I was working on it at a retreat. So I'll see if I can, whatever I can link, I'll link up at the eye. If not, look in the description box. And thank you for asking. Yeah, Paulette, she says, have you ever done a scrap swap? No, I haven't. And that's because I got so much fabric, it's ridiculous. I don't need to. So I don't want to go through all the work to prep the fabrics, like if we're swapping 10-inch squares or something like that. So I just don't sign up for those. I think they would be interesting to see what I actually get back. But I got so many of all fabrics. Now, if I was short on, say, a particular color, or if I wanted to get some more Christmas fabrics, then I would probably do a swap. But what I used to do was I used to do a lot of block swaps, not actually fabric swaps. I'd rather have something that I can use in a project as compared to just swapping another piece of fabric, because I got to prep that to the particular sizes and all of that, and then it still isn't made into anything. I'd rather receive a block from somebody and then know that this block came from such and such. And as you know from my quilt labels video, I showed you how I actually document. So I do remember who sends me what and what I use. But it'd be harder for me to do that if I'm just swapping fabric. But I'm not against them for people that don't have a lot of different variety in their stash. Eric Oda said, do you keep scraps that have fusible iron on the back? Have an applique project that created a lot of scraps. Don't know what to do with them. Yes, I do. I actually have fabric pieces that do have fusible web that came from other projects. And then I also have fusible flowers already made that I've cut with my Go dye system. And I need to do a video on that, just a little piece of that, because I cut some appliques, and then Baby Lock has some software that they made in conjunction with AccuQuilt that I can use to embroider those appliques. So I can do the buttonhole stitch, a tight zigzag, or I mean a tight satin stitch zigzag, or a loose zigzag to cover it. So I need to do like a quick video on that at some point. I got so many things on my to-do list, it's not even funny, but we'll see. But yes, that's a good question. But I do keep it because you just never know when you might need a little piece here or there. I just have one, like one of those plastic containers at Walmart that have the little pull-out drawers. So I keep my fusible scraps in one, and I keep the actual fused fabric in another. So it's not like it's a whole lot of it per se, but I do try to keep it organized. So if I need it, it's readily available. Jennifer says, hi everyone from South Carolina. So love, just finished first quilt, not many scraps. And that's awesome if you've got just the right amount of scraps. But what normally happens for me when I was purchasing for a particular quilt, when I was making quilts that require particular yardage, I always bought a little more because I've had one instance where I needed another piece of fabric, and then that fabric wasn't available anymore, and it's very difficult to find. There are websites online that people use to try to find a fabric that they've run short of. So I try to prevent that. If I am doing a fabric that says, I mean, a quilt that only has like 5 or 7 fabrics in it, I will buy extra fabric just in case I decide to make it larger. Therefore, I don't have to worry about running out. And Rosalind is saying she visited you. You're in quilting meeting while visiting my aunt. She says, wait a minute, let me make sure I'm getting this right. She says, T, Rosalind from Durham visited you're in quilt meeting while visiting my aunt. I have been using starters and enders and sewing multiple quilts. Thanks for a great time. Yeah, she came to St. Louis and she contacted me, and it was around, was it Thanksgiving? I can't remember what holiday. It was around a holiday or something, and so we were both kind of busy with family, but we did meet up and we had a great time. I'm trying to think what all did we do, because we it was a very nice um encounter. I just can't remember what all we did because I'm blocking right now. I wasn't expecting her to say that, but oh my gosh. Okay, we got Alaquina. She says, I'm a new quilter. Just started this year, no scraps yet. Enjoying your live show. And that's the thing about scraps. Sometimes if you're new with quilting, you can sometimes people might donate a little bit, try to help you out. And that's one of the beauties also of being in a quilt guild. You might have somebody that's no longer wanting stuff and donating stuff. There was a video or two where I sent people scraps when I was going through, and I just get tired of looking at them. They're perfectly fine, but they're just old, and I've been using them for 10, 20 years, and I don't want to look at them anymore. I think I gave out some Christmas scraps like that. So just stay focused, and you will be able make scrap quilts without buying a whole lot. And I try not to like start a project with back quarters per se, trying to make a scrap quilt. I do for the most part just go to my stash and make scrap quilts. And it looks like I am actually through the comment section. Do anyone else have any other questions they'd like to ask, especially you newbie quilters? If I missed anyone's question up above, please repost it in the chat box for me. So what other things have I been working on while I wait for chats from the box? Is I have a friend whose birthday is coming up. I've been working on making her a birthday card, and so I made two, but just in case, because I was doing some coloring, and so she'll actually get one card to keep, and then she'll get another card that she can give to someone else. But that'll be real fun when I give it to her on Saturday to see if she really likes it. And Phyllis from North Carolina says someone may have asked this question and missed the answer. Is there any preparation needed before storing fabric in plastic containers? Should I put a small hole into the container for air circulation? You know, I haven't even thought about doing that with my actual scrap storage container. So no, I don't have any holes in there. But the funny thing is that I do put them into my large quilt storage container. So it's not actually a bad idea. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's actually a very good tip. And Cindy is telling Alaquina that you will have scraps. You definitely will. As it's very rare that you can buy the exact amount of fabric for a quilt. Even if you're making it the same size, you will end up with a 2.5 inch strip or something like that. Most patterns will not, they always add a little bit extra because they don't know how you're going to cut. And so they don't want you to cut their pattern out and then not have enough fabric. So eventually you keep making quilts, you will have scraps. Anybody else have any questions? This will be one of the few times that we'll end early or on time. I think we got another 14 minutes to go if anybody got any questions. And Claudette says that she don't have a system yet for her scraps, so she's getting a lot of information from the chat. So thank you everybody for participating. That's helping out those that don't have a system or those that might want to revamp their systems. And Cindy says that she stores her fabric with mini cedar balls for bugs. And I don't have that problem. I know in the St. Louis area, we don't have that problem. I know a lot of people say that they don't starch their fabrics because of bugs, but I'm telling you, I've been quilting since 1994, been sewing since 1986, and I have never pulled out fabric in the Midwest that's had bugs in it. And I'm in the metropolitan area of St. Louis. So I have not had any of those issues come up. But it just depends on where you are. Some areas have more moisture. Some people, it's even different for their irons, where your water may be harder over here than it is in another area. So I don't have any of those type issues. Paulette Alaquina says, I can send you some. Alaquina Paulette says she can send you some scraps. So you might want to get to chatting with her real quick in this chat box so you all can figure that out. Leah says, I consider myself a newbie. I've been quilting 2 years now. She's 71, and I'm modeling my grandson's quilt from the plaid quilt you showed on your video. Oh, that's awesome. That was the Benertex quilt that I did, where I just took plain squares, sewed them together, and then just randomly sliced them at intersections and put a strip in between. I do a lot of that kind of stuff when I'm not liking the fabrics, or I just don't want to put a lot of effort into something, but I want to get it done. So that was kind of a quick quilt for me. Gwen says, will you do a a retreat in Vegas. I don't know if you're asking me if I will attend a quilt retreat in Vegas or if I will do a lecture or teach at a quilt retreat in Vegas, but it's open for discussion either way. Thank you, Cindy and T. Looking forward to them. You all got to figure out how you're gonna notify each other about the scraps, though, Alaquina. Darlene Farmer say, how do you decide what kind of quilt you would like to make? That is one of the hardest things. I probably have a good 300 quilts I would like to make that they're just not going to happen. It's just very difficult. A lot of times my scrap quilting club trumps whatever it is that I'm going to make. My whole goal with the scrap quilting club is to try to get them easier type projects, but then every once in a while I'll try to throw them a challenge quilt as well. So some of the things that I really want to do, I can't do because I'm coordinating other groups that are doing things. I also have my smaller guild that we meet in each other's homes. We do yearly projects or monthly projects or yearly assignments. So it depends. I really can't do what I want to do because of all the other things that I'm doing. So every once in a while I'll just say I'm going to do what I want to do. Like when I did the Pat Sloan Solstice quilt, I couldn't do her blocks, but I decided I was going to participate the best way that I knew how. So I sometimes I have to like just say I'm going to do this, and all the other stuff is just going to have to wait sometimes if it's not something that I'm obligated to be somewhere else. As long as it's my time and I may not meet my own personal demands somewhere else, then I'm okay with switching some things around. But if I have a business thing where I'm doing a lecture or a workshop, those would trump everything else. So it's hard. It's very hard because I'll see stuff scrolling through Facebook, looking at YouTube videos, and then I want to do it, but it's like you don't have time to do that. I'm really a technique junkie. I love using gadgets and I love new processes. Rosalind Lloyd said, do you have an online guild? I do not have an online guild. We talked about that last week, and I don't think anything has been done with that. Jennifer asked me, did my mom quilt? No, ma'am. My mom can't even sew a button on her shirt. But I did have as a child up till about when I was 7 or 8 years old, I had a great aunt that lived in the rural area off Birmingham, and she used to make the quilts and would put the old quilts into the new quilts as batting. And so I used to watch her do a lot of stuff, but I was too young for her to actually teach me. So it was always a desire since I was a child to quilt, but I started sewing first because I thought quilting was so hard. And now I don't make clothing unless it's a quilted item, and I haven't made any of those in a while. So, yeah, it's weird how we do a full circle. Carla is asking me, do I like paper piecing? I actually love paper piecing. I have done a lot of projects in the past, and that's probably why I don't do a whole lot of them now, just because I have done a whole lot. I do have some projects that are paper piecing that I want to do, but they're very involved because I'm beyond the simple paper piecing. So that's why I haven't done any, because if I do any more paper piecing, it's going to be very complex. I will give you a hint though, one of my favorite online sites for paper piecing is the Paper Panache. Paper, Panache. And she does one free mystery thing per month. I haven't been doing them in a long time, but she will make about a 10 to 12-inch block. You never know what it's going to be until you start piecing it together. But it is for your more advanced paper piecers because you got so many different sections. It is doable for a beginner if you're just working section by section. Okay. I'm laughing at Eric's comment because it popped up, but it's not ready to be read yet. But we'll come back to that. Alaquina says, Paulette, I live in the Bahamas. Shipping cost is high here. And so Trisha says she does squares 10-inch, 5-inch, 3.5, 2.5 inch. She does her strips in 2.5 and 1.5, long strings, short strings, and then she has a bag for crumbs no smaller than about 1/2 inch in width. And she also cuts with the Teaquilts. Linda Short says, how many hours a day do you sew? That is one of those questions that I can't really say that I sew every day. And that's because I also do this as a business. So all of my days, every day is filled with quilting in some form. I may not sew every day, and I don't really keep track of that because sometimes I might sew straight for 3 or 4 days with no, only just doing sleep hours and my not sewing. And then other times I may be in my office for 3 or 4 days in a row other than my sleep time. So I'm doing something quilting at least 12 hours every day. Let's just say that. Because even when I'm not actively doing it, I'm thinking about it in my head, thinking about processes, what videos I need to make. Since I'm a one-man shop, I have no assistants. My husband is not a bit interested in any of this. He appreciates what I do and he gives me kudos and he likes what I do. He will look at what I do, but he doesn't want to help with any of that. And I'm okay with that as well, because if somebody doesn't want to help, you don't want them to be there, But it's all good. It's just that it's not something that he wants to do. Now I have been talking with my daughter to see if she would be willing to come over on Wednesdays and handle the comments while I'm working with the live thing, so I'm not going back and forth from the camera to the comment section, because for some reason the comment section will not come up on my screen here. So weird. It's all technology for me that I need to figure out. Krista says, hey T, I have started cutting all my leftovers after cutting a project and hope to keep that up. And that's the best way to control your scraps. You got to contain them from coming, as you're starting. And now I'm to Eric. Hi, Eric. He says, I am not commenting about an online deal. I learned my lesson last time. See, I just had the question of, like, what is the difference between having an online guild and going to my Teaquilts Facebook group? Because you can go over there, you can share. I was trying to figure out, like, if we're going to meet at a particular time of the year, say once a quarter somewhere, once a year, we could still organize all of that through my Teaquilts group. So I didn't understand what was the purpose and what were we going to do differently if we had an online guild. And I never got any responses to that. So I'm still stuck at the why are we having an online guild? Because you can share over in my Facebook group. I even sometimes will organize charity projects over there. When we had the Orlando encounter a couple years ago, I organized a heart quilt for that. So, it's certain things that I already do over there. So I need to know, I need more. If I'm going to put some effort into something and take time away from something else, since it's just me, I need more justification on why an online deal as compared to an online Facebook group. Diane, she says, hi, she's new here. Welcome, Diane, to the channel. I hope you subscribe and go back and watch some of my other videos. On Sundays, I try to upload some kind of a quilt block if I'm able to, depending on my schedule. So I'm working on the Sunday block now. It's on my design wall. I'm trying to hide it from you. Sarah says, hey, miss you again, but thank you for helping me out. I just started quilting about 2 months ago. You're welcome, Sarah. Rosemary said, I've gone through my stash and have kitted up 27 quilt projects and still have mega amounts of scraps. So the newbies will have scraps soon if they keep quilting. Just more justification that they are coming. Thank you, Jennifer. We're chanting Eric for Guild, for online Guild president. Yes, yes. Oh, Rosemary says some of the quilt shops will have scrap bins that they will sell a bag for $3 to $5 is a good way to start. You're absolutely correct. That is a great way to start. Yeah, we're gonna make up a banner next time for you, Eric. And Diane says she loves scrap bins. Diane, I saw you on live Facebook where you were at some kind of place that was doing selling their samples or something, and they were really pretty. So, but you said it was a lot of people in there. I couldn't do it. But I bet you had some fun in there. Judy Musgrove says, what kind is your long arm? I actually have the Gamel, and I did a whole like 3 video series on what to look for in purchasing a long arm, because the Gamel may not be for you. Maybe it's something else. And so maybe you might want to check out those series of videos. You can just go to my main channel and search what to things to consider when purchasing a long arm is the name of the video. Eric's back in the comments. You're not going to live that down, buddy. She says, got Sarah says, I go to your YouTube for everything. You just don't know you help me out all the time. Well, I appreciate that because that's the whole purpose of my channel. That's why I started my channel, from doing lectures and people were asking me questions, and I found that I kept answering the same question over and over again. So sometimes I get my new video ideas from suggestions in my comment section, and sometimes I get them when I go to lectures and classes and I see where someone is struggling. So then I will make a video on that particular topic. So thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Liz, too. She's dittoing Sarah's comment. So we're at 8:01. I think we've had a very great chat today about scraps and storage. So I appreciate everyone coming, and I will see you all next time. So don't forget to give me a thumbs up for the chat so I can get credit for it through YouTube. And that's the other thing. Let me just briefly talk about what's going on with YouTube, because I'm one of the smaller channels. I do qualify right now for what's going on. They're going to be making some changes where if you're not getting 4,000 views within a certain period of time, they're going to be demonetizing particular channels. So I just want you all to, when you watch something, if you would just go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. A lot of you already do that. So I will still make videos. I only make about $120 a month on YouTube. So I use that money to go out and buy new products that I do reviews on for you all. That money doesn't really stay in my pocket. So I would at least like to get something off of YouTube over absolutely nothing, because it is a big portion of my time that I use to put into these videos. By the time, if I'm sewing a quilt block, I can make a quilt block in 10 minutes. But if I'm making a quilt block and I've got to record every step of it, it can take me 2 to 3 hours. And then once I get that video made, I have to go edit it. And then I have to render that video once I edit. And then I have to upload that video to Facebook. And then I have to do all of the Facebook update changes. So I'm not really making any money off of YouTube, but I would like to at least get something to help sustain my channel. So there, and a lot of times I put my video up and all I'm talking about is quilting, and they'll have a little mark on it preventing it from getting money until about 4 or 5 days later. Well, most of my views are within the first 2 days. So it's a lot going on with Facebook. I've been trying to ignore it, but I do notice that a lot of my videos are not, they don't have money value on them because they have put a mark on them saying that they're not suitable for all audiences. And I'm like, quilting isn't suitable for all audiences. So I think maybe because of the terminology that we have that Facebook isn't familiar with. So please thumbs up, and I will see you all later. And thank you, Linda. She says I'd give you 10 thumbs up if I could. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week. And don't forget, when the video goes live, to give me suggestions for, I don't have a topic yet. Bye-bye.